Hi folks. Today, as Halloween is coming up soon, I thought I would chat a little bit, just give you a little insight into Halloween in Scotland, how it came about and really what it was like up until fairly recently. 31st of October, which we call Halloween, is actually All Hallows Eve or All Saints Eve, and that the origins of that, as I'm going to show you, can be traced back to this ancient Celtic festival called Samhain, which really meant summer's end in Gaelic, and Samhain took place on November the 1st. And it really marked the end of summer for the Celts and the beginning of what would normally be a long, dark, cold winter. So the night before Samhain, people believed that the dead returned as ghosts, and to protect themselves against these spirits, people would leave food and wine on their doorsteps. And when leaving their house, they would disguise themselves or wear masks, perhaps to be mistaken as fellow ghosts. Often to celebrate Samhain, the Druids would build these huge sacred bonfires in which were sacrificed animals, and they burned crops to appease the Celtic gods. And often during these ceremonies, people wore costumes that would perhaps be made of or featuring animals' heads and animal skins, and they often told fortunes. So that was this great festival in Celtic times. However, with the advent of Christianity, different festivals were in place, and in 835 AD, Pope Gregory III announced that there would be this great festival on November the 1st, which would be called All Saints' Day. And this really incorporated some of the traditions of the Celtic festival Samhain and Christian practices. This day, All Saints' Day, subsequently became known as All Hallows' Day, and therefore the day before, October the 31st, was called All Hallows Eve, or shortened to All Halloween or Halloween. So that's how we get Halloween, and you often see Halloween spelt with a little dash, which is to do with Hallows, because it comes from All Hallows Eve. Halloween in Scotland, though, was all about the supernatural, though, witches, spirits, fire, and that's because the Celts had this belief that on that night, the 31st of October, ghosts of the dead would walk amongst them. So sometimes large bonfires would be built to ward off evil spirits. Subsequently, what happened was that people would carry turnip lanterns. Now in Scotland, we call turnip can be called tumshay, so they would be called tumshay lanterns. Just to confuse you, turnip is also called neeps. So when we eat it, as you'll know, on Burns Night, we have turnip and we call it neeps. Haggis, neeps, and tatties. So the neeps is turnip. Turnips are very popular, or was very popular and grown widely in Scotland. Turnips, and we didn't have pumpkins, so people would make tumshay lanterns, and they would do that in the same way. They would scoop out a turnip and cut through the skin to create eyes and a nose and a mouth, and then a candle would be placed inside it. So when I was younger, that's what we did. We would get a turnip from the field usually, or somewhere. Maybe my mum would get us one. and we would have to we would do that ourselves. We'd cut out our Tumsha lantern. And for those of you who've ever cut up turnip, it is an incredibly hard vegetable. It's much harder to cut than, say, potatoes and things like that. As I always remember, I used to bend my mother's cutlery. My poor mother's cutlery used to get damaged as I was trying to gouge out this turnip. But it used to take a long time. You used to have to use knives and all sorts to cut it, and spoons and everything. So yeah, it was great. I used to love making it, and we used to then put a candle inside it, and that's what we would all carry that with us to ward off the evil spirits, as it were. So that was very much part of it. And then we would get up, dressed up, and we'd go out, instead of calling it trick-or-treating, and they would still call it this in Scotland, although the term trick-or-treat has come in Scotland now, but we would be called guising, which I believe came from the word disguise, because you were disguising yourself. So it was called guising. You went out guising. All the children went out guising. And really the costumes would be made up of whatever you could get, really whatever your mum could help you with, or your auntie or granny or something like that, you know. In those days you didn't really buy costumes, or most people couldn't afford them, to be honest, and they weren't readily available as they are now. So you would just be, you know, trying to make something up from what you could get. And you always try to make your face look as scary as possible. And I always remember my sisters helping me with that. And then we would go around. You would go around the houses. So I was brought up in a small village, and we'd go out and go around all the doors, knocking on the doors. And then what we had to do, you did have to perform a little trick, or a party trick. We didn't say trick or treat. You know, you would what you would do is you could recite a poem, perhaps, or perhaps sing a little song, or perhaps tell some jokes or something like that. And that's what you would really do. Usually at the door, actually, but sometimes you would be invited in. And then you'd be given treats. You'd be carrying we used to carry a bucket usually. Usually one, I think. If for instance there was, say, 3 or 4 of you there, probably just one bucket, I think, and then it was all shared out later on. And you often got fruit. You would apples and oranges. You'd be given nuts, often nuts. Some sweets. Sweets maybe weren't quite as plentiful then, perhaps, as they are now. And you would get some money. Some people would give you some money. So you get this combination of things. So it was great fun. I used to absolutely love going out guising, and when we came back, it was all such great fun, you know, divvying up everything that was in the bucket, and so, you know, had to be done equally, as it were, and that was great fun. So in Scotland, guising, very much it was called guising. Very similar, I think, to trick or treat and whatever, you know, how it goes on nowadays. We also used to play Halloween party games. So that was quite a big thing, actually, Halloween party games. And the favourite one that I remember, there were quite a few, but the favourite one that I remember was ducking for apples, what we called ducking for apples. So that meant ducking. So my mother, I think, would set up a big tub. I think it probably would have been. I think it was some kind of big enameled, maybe even been a child's bath or something. Anyway, something like, most mothers would set this up, fill it with water, cold water, and put in the apples, and the apples are all floating on the water, and you have to try and get them in your mouth without using your hands. So you're holding your hands behind your back and you're bending forward, and you know, obviously the apple goes down in the water, and you know, you're under the water and things like that. But it's great fun. Absolutely soaks the floor all around it, and the children are all soaked. But great fun, and if you can eventually you get hold of it with your teeth, and then you can keep the apple. So that's called, in Scotland that was called duking for apples, and that was a very popular one. There were others, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head which ones there were, but duking for apples certainly was a very popular one. Apparently that duking for apples does go back to pagan times, because apples were sort of very held in high esteem by the Celts. So that one I think does go back a long, long way. I searched in vain for some pictures of myself at Halloween when I was guising, but couldn't find any. I think, up until fairly recently, pictures weren't taken so prolifically as they are now. Obviously now with phones, mobile phones, there are millions, billions of photographs being taken every day. But in the days when you had to buy a film and then get the film developed, yeah, didn't always happen. So I couldn't find any pictures, but I'm going to shove up on the screen here a picture I found of geysers in Scotland in the 1950s, and that I think looks pretty similar to what the sort of things we would do. So just now, actually, I'm just going to show you. Also, I thought I'd just show you a little video clip. Just looking back through my video clips, and June and I had gone to Clava Cairns. It was actually the day before Halloween. I think it was about 6 years ago. So I'm just going to show you that video now, because I always remember when we went there and June was talking about it, I did think, sorry, Clava Cairns, many of you have been there. There is a stone circle there, but there's also a huge stone burial chambers, and it certainly made me think, what kind of rituals, what sort of activities would have taken place, in a site like Clava Cairns, over the centuries, all those years ago. Who knows what would have happened on this day, which has been a special day going back thousands of years, when calling up the dead or warding off spirits has been very important. And I always remember thinking about that when I was taking this video clip of June just walking around the day before Halloween. Anyway, so I'm going to show you it now, and you can see, for those of you who haven't been to Clava Cairns, this is Clava Cairns at Halloween time.
Sing me a song of a lad that is gone, say could that lad be I? Merry of soul, he sailed on a day over the sea to sky. Moses stern, rum on the port, egg on the starboard bar. Glory of youth glowed in his soul, where is the glory now? Sing me a song of a lad that is gone, say could that lad be I? Merry of soul, he sailed on a day over the sea to sky. Give me again all that was there, give me the sun that shone, give me the eyes, give me the soul, give me the lad that's gone. Sing me a song of a lad that is gone, say could that lad be I? Merry of soul, he sailed on a day over the sea to sky. Billow and breeze, islands and seas, mountains of rain.
So that was June wandering around amongst the stones at Halloween time. at Clava Cairns up in the Highlands of Scotland. Anyway, unfortunately in Scotland now we've just been told that the children aren't allowed to go out guising, trick-or-treating this Halloween, which is a great shame. As you maybe know, in Scotland now, large areas of Scotland are pretty much back to lockdown again. So it's quite difficult in some areas, certainly right across the central belt and through in the west of Scotland. Yeah, very, very difficult. But it's a shame for children, the kids now. It's certainly the first year ever in my lifetime I can remember children not going out guising. So that's going to be a shame for them. But I hope nevertheless that perhaps in Scotland, certainly hopefully they might be having little parties with their families. And certainly to everyone else around the world, if you are celebrating Halloween in this special evening, which goes back thousands of years, then I hope you do enjoy it. In the meantime, all I can say to you again, as usual, is to wish you all the very best from Scotland.